Hi everyone, Autumn here from Studio 23. Today I'm going to be showing you some painting basics, and we're going to be painting this painting of a field and a tree. So I do have an image of this posted online that I posted earlier today if you'd like to use it to reference. I will attempt to keep this picture in the screen the whole time while I'm painting up here, and I will pull it up so you can see details and stuff like that. But I mean, unfortunately, I am recording this from my house, not from a studio, so I kind of just have to make do with the equipment that I have, so please bear with me. Otherwise, for things we're going to need today, we're going to need a big paintbrush. So this is my large paintbrush, and this will be to do the background. I have a small detail brush, and any kind of brushes you have, I think they'll be just fine. We'll get it figured out. And then I also have an old toothbrush, and this is going to be important at the end too, so if you have one of those, that'd be great. Some Q-tips that I have simply rubber banded together. That's going to be another one of our brushes that we're using. And then I have some white paint, I have some blue paint, and any blue you have will do just fine. I have two different greens. I have a more yellow green and a darker green, but again, any green you can get a hold of is fine. I have some yellow and I have some brown. All right, so if you can get your hands on those, you can follow along. Otherwise, let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to do our background. And if you saw the original, you see that we just have a light blue background. So for the light blue, we just need white and whatever blue you have, okay? So we're going to grab some blue. All right. It looks like my blue is running out. I grabbed the wrong blue. We'll go with it. We'll improvise. All right. And I'm just going to put them right together. Grab my brush and just start going for it. And I'm just brushing from side to side across my entire canvas. Now I'm painting on a canvas board, one that I gessoed because I've already used it for a demonstration before. But if you don't have a canvas or a canvas board to paint on, what do you have to paint on? There's so many things that you could use, household things. Maybe there's something around your house you're not using anymore. Something that you might want to paint on. Let's see, we need a little more. See if I can get a little more out of here. There we go. And you can see while I'm working this that there are some kind of streaks going on, right? I like that. I kind of think it helps give the idea of that this is sky. But if you don't like that, just continue to work your brush back and forth, and it's going to blend it. Okay? We're going to go down here to the bottom. All right, we have our sky background. So that was pretty easy, right? Just blue, whatever blue you can get your hands on, and white. So we're done with this big brush now. We're not gonna need that anymore. And we're done with our blue also, luckily, because I'm pretty much out of it. Newbie painter following along. Well, welcome, Crystal. I'm so happy you're joining me. If you have any questions, I usually can see them in enough time. Please feel free to ask, okay? All right, so for the next step, while this is drying, we're gonna prep to move on, and we're gonna move on to the leaf part of the tree. And I'm sure you're thinking like, oh man, that looks tough. I promise you it's not nearly as tough as it looks because I've painted this with a bundle of Q-tips. I actually used this particular one, so I created this with this. You can totally do it, I promise. So what we need to do is we need to set up first this lighter green color, because we do it in layers. We're doing about 3 layers. So we're gonna do this light yellowy green color in the background. Then we're gonna do a medium green over that, and then we're gonna do a darker green over that. But while we do it, I'm gonna kind of move in a little bit so that that first layer is gonna go all the way out here, the second layer is probably only gonna go out to here, and that third layer is gonna go out to maybe right about here. And that's gonna give us a little bit of depth in our painting. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So to set up our paint, I'm going to take that lighter green that I have, which is a very yellow green. There's a lot of yellow in it. Now I'm going to get that going on my palette paper. And if you don't have palette paper, just go ahead and grab like a paper plate or something. It'll work just fine. All right. So there is my lighter green. We'll put some yellow in there too. So we can really see the difference. We really want to be able to see the difference. All right, and I'm just going to use the back of my brush and mix that green and yellow together. So we get that really nice, almost like avocado green. Oh, I love that. That is like one of my favorite colors. All right, so I think that's mixed up good enough. You wipe that off. All right, so I'm gonna go in with my Q-tips, okay? And I'm gonna dip into that yellow green. And I wanna try and make sure I got it all covered. And if I have to, I can even it out a little bit. Let's see, yep, looking good. And then I'm gonna tap off a little bit because I don't wanna overdo it, okay? So right on my paper, I'm gonna tap off. All right. And then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna start making my leaves. But I wanna keep it pretty much localized in the middle and having little bits kind of drift off here and there. So I'm just gonna go for it and I'm gonna start, you're gonna use them almost like a stamp. How many Q-tips? Let's see, I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have about 14 Q-tips here. I wouldn't do any less than that. I'd say you could do more, no problem. But I'd say probably about 14, 15 Q-tips probably will do you right. All right, so we're gonna go in and we're just gonna start stamping, okay? And I kind of like to do a swirling motion when I do it because then I feel like you don't get any real pattern and it doesn't look, you know, it doesn't look contrived. It looks natural, it looks organic, right? All right, I'm gonna go in, load up my Q-tips again. And then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna start adding these little wisps here and there to make it look more organic, more like a real tree. All right, and I'm just gonna keep going for it until I think I'm good. All right, so I think that's good enough for my background color. And I know it looks like it's not much happening, but remember, we're doing it in 3 layers, okay? So now I'm gonna take just my yellow-green color. If you don't have a yellowy green color, you could just take your regular green and add just a small amount of yellow to it. You don't want it to be as light as the first color we use, because you want to be able to see that there's 3 layers of color going on. But if you have any questions as far as mixing colors, please let me know. I'm sure I can help you out. All right, so I got just some lighter green going on here. And I'm going to take my Q-tips, and I'm not wiping anything off. I'm just going to go ahead and go right in. Load up my Q-tips. And I'm going to do those swirling patterns again. But remember, I don't want to go all the way out. I want to leave some of that lighter green on the very outside. So I'm only going to go to maybe about here. And it doesn't have to look perfect. Remember, it's a tree. So it's gonna look organic. It's not gonna look perfect, right? So that is what's so great about painting things in nature, is they just don't have to look perfect. So I think I'm happy with my middle color green. So next I'm gonna move on to my darker green. So this is my darker green that I'm using. It's just a deep green, okay? If you don't have a darker green, you can always add a small amount of black or even blue to your green, but you just want to add a really small amount, and then if you need more, add a little more at a time. Because especially colors like black, it's very, very easy to overdo it. So if you have to create your dark green that way, I suggest like very slowly building it up until you get the color you want. Otherwise, I'm just gonna take my dark green and get it on my palette. And all I'm doing with my brush is kind of flattening my paint out so I can get an even coat on my Q-tips when I put them in. And Krista, let me know if you have any questions, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go right back in with my Q-tips, same exact ones I've been using, okay? Loading it up, and let me make sure I don't have too much on there. Let's see, here we go. All right, and I'm gonna start in the middle again, and I'm just gonna stamp it and do that kind of spiral pattern. And I'm going to keep loading it up and stamping. Now this one, I don't want it to go as wide as that second color because like I said, I want to see those 3 layers. I want to see the different layers of color. But this one I am going to make sure and take it all the way down to the bottom to kind of give the idea that there's a little more shade at the bottom of the tree. So basically, we cover a little less of the tree each time we add a color, is what we're doing. And for any of you that are following along at home, this will be sent to our Facebook videos when it's done, so you can reference this anytime you want, okay? All right, a little more of the dark green. And I am good with that, so I think I'm going to leave that be. I think I'm happy with my tree the way it is. It's not too far off from the original. If you want to see the original up close, you can see that I kind of did the same thing. All right. So what we're going to move on to next is we're going to move on to the actual tree itself. For that, you're going to want to use your smaller brush. And when I paint with the smaller brush, a lot of times I'll hold it at an angle, but sometimes you have to be mindful of what direction you're holding it. And what I mean by that is, are you painting it widthwise or lengthwise? And I will explain it to you, but just keep that in mind, okay? For the tree itself, we're going to use brown, and then at the very end I'll show you how to blend some white in to kind of give the idea of highlight on the tree. But it's a pretty basic concept for the tree. If you can keep in mind that it's a lot of Y and V shapes, you should be in pretty good shape. The other thing to keep in mind is that a branch or a trunk or anything that you're painting, it's always going to be bigger on the bottom than the higher up you go. So what I mean by that is, like the trunk, obviously, right? It's bigger on the bottom and they get smaller as they go up. Even the branches, they're wider where they're connected here to the tree, and they get thinner as they go out. And I'll show you what I'm talking about while I do it. Oops. There we go. All right, so I got my brush, my small brush, and I'm just gonna use a basic brown color. All right, and that should be plenty of paint. All right, so I'm gonna load up my brush. I don't like to overload it. It's about how much I have on my brush though. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do the trunk first, okay? And actually, I'm gonna move this up a little closer so I can see my trunk. There we go, okay. So start with my trunk. I'm gonna start down at the very bottom of my canvas, and I'm just gonna make my way up and in, okay? And I'll go over to the other side here. Let's see. Then I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna keep filling it in. Now up maybe about here, I'm gonna have my tree split. And so I'm gonna do this other branch over here. And see how I'm thinning it out? I want it to get thinner the further up that it goes. All right, and then from there we can start making branches that shoot off of it. And I just want to widen out the bottom a little bit, just like that. Now the nice thing about acrylic paint, and especially painting trees, is if you mess something up, it's pretty easy to fix, and you can usually, you know, like let's say you think you made the end of your tree too big, which happens a lot, just widen out the base of it and you can fix it. And then if that's too big, or excuse me, that's too big and this part maybe seems too small, just make this part a little wider. It's pretty easy to fix. And I'm just going to do some thin branches up here. So when I go up to here to do these really thin branches, I'm not painting with my brush like this. I'm holding it like this because I want a really, really thin line. And I think I'll have one coming off like this. Now ideally you would want to blow dry between layers, but just because of time constraints, I'm not doing that. But just grab a blow dryer. You can always blow dry it. And I'm just going to keep going in and making my Y and my V shapes until I have as many branches as I want. Keeping in mind that I want the bottoms to be bigger than the parts on top. And I'll keep loading up and keep making my branches. Now at any point, if I want to go over something, let's say if I feel like I made too many branches or something like that, I can easily go in with my Q-tips. Like I said, it's a super easy fix when it comes to acrylic paint. So you could just go in, with whatever color you want, stamp around a little bit. So you'll want to keep going until you have as many branches as you want. You could very easily add another bigger branch over here. That might look nice. A lot of times it's just kind of what you want. I mean, trees look so many different ways, right? So I think it's kind of just what your mind's telling you the tree needs to look like. There we go. So, I mean, you can really do a lot of things with the trees. You could even add little imperfections. Maybe there was a little branch down here that's no more, right? I mean, you could add so many little things, right, to your tree. All right. So, I think we could really go on and on and on with the branches, but we'll move on for the sake of time. What we want to do still to the tree is we want to create a little bit of form with it. So we're just going to take a really small amount of white and we're going to go in, and our tree's still really wet, so we should be able to go right in still. And I'm going to go in on the right side here And I'm just going to brush on a little bit of white to kind of give the idea of highlight. And I'll even make our little branch that died off. I'll give him a little highlight too. And then I'm just going to kind of blend it in a little. I'm going to try and keep this side a little darker. And if you had like a black color, you could even take a really, really small amount and kind of make shade over here if you wanted. You can just go back over it with the brown. But for people that are new to acrylic painting, it's all about the layers. The more layers you add, the better off you're going to be. All right, I think that's good enough for me. You might want to keep going with your branches, and that's fine too. But for time constraints, I'll move on to the last step, which is the grass at the bottom that you see down here. And the way I did that was with my old toothbrush. Super easy to do. Okay, you're just gonna go in with those colors that you use for the tree, and we're gonna put those in to make the grass. So I'm going to start with the light green color that the very first color we used. And I'm just going to get those bristles in there, okay? And I'm going to take them and I'm going to go in an upward direction. They don't all have to be perfect, but you just kind of want to, we're trying to give the idea of grass. And you want to make sure you go right from the bottom of your canvas up. All right, we got that first color down, so I'm sure you guessed it. We're gonna go in with the next color. I'm not gonna clean my brush off at all because if the colors blend, I'm fine with that. We're gonna go into that second color of green that we used in the same exact way. And then we're gonna go in with that last color, that darker green. And we're not gonna do as much of the dark green, but we still wanna make sure we get some in there. But we're gonna do it the same way. And I'm not going quite as high as the other colors because I wanna make sure they show. And I don't want that dark green to be too overpowering. Just like that. And now, with any of these steps, pardon me, if you wanted to, pardon me, you could go in and you could add yellow or you could add blue. Like I said, when you're working with acrylic paint, the more layers, the better. So if you wanted to add a layer of yellow in there, just a little bit, not very much. A layer of blue, and again, very, very sparingly. All you're gonna do is add to the overall effect of your painting. You could also very easily take some white and go in and add some clouds. I would probably just use that small brush, and you could go in and kind of brush in some clouds. You could add birds. You could really add anything you wanted to. So our final product like I showed you earlier today. I hope you enjoyed this little demo of these very, very basic painting techniques. If these are something that you enjoy, we have so many painting classes and workshops that we're starting to offer now on the Studio 23 website virtually. We have some absolutely amazing painting instructors. So maybe that's something you might be interested in. Look at our Facebook page, look at our website. If you find a class you're interested in, please give us a call. Otherwise, I will let you continue on with your painting, but I hope you enjoyed my little demo, and we will be back with you tomorrow. Myself and Tara and Val will be back with you doing all kinds of demos and projects and talking about more of our artists. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I hope you learned a little bit about painting, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.